You're good to go.
Yep. All right, guys, it is 7:31, January 10th, strategic planning for Avon Grove Charter School. Hope everybody had a good holiday and is enjoying the new year so far. Any questions or concern about the December 2022 minutes before Brian takes this thing over?
No, I reviewed them, didn't have any questions or concerns.
Going once, going twice. All right, Brute, you should be good to go.
All right, so the first thing on the agenda, and we're not gonna go through the first reading policies this evening. I had taken all of those and put them into shared Google document so that everyone on the committee can go through and read those like we would have done previous to the committee meeting, and make comments or suggested edits within the document. If you have not done that yet or we're holding off, if you could submit those comments or suggestions by the end of the end of tomorrow. That way I can make any more suggested updates, and that the timing with legal review for first reading presentation at the next board meeting is able to happen. Those policies that were sent out were 1018 alternative instruction programs, 1018.1 independent study, 5001 facilities planning, 5006 property records, 6104 copyright material, and 6018 contracted services personnel. So again, tomorrow, if you can get any suggested edits or comments in there, that'd be great. And the other agenda item for tonight is the CCIU communications review on the agenda. So one of our goals this year was to take a look at our communication, and that's a broad umbrella, but how do we communicate, and how effectively do we communicate with our staff, with our parents, with the board, amongst each other. So to sort of facilitate the process of a communications review, we reached out to the CCIU and asked them to kind of come in and be an independent body that helps us through this process and is able to be sort of a non-biased entity to work with us and then give us suggestions on how to improve moving forward. So tonight we have Mary Curley, Ashley Boyd, and Melissa Smith from the IU, and they're really going to run the rest of our meeting tonight. So I appreciate everybody who was able to make it out this evening, and I think Melissa and Ashley, they want you to be unmiked and participate, and yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you all for this opportunity to spend some time with you this evening. I'm going to start off by just quickly introducing again our team. So again, I'm Melissa Smith. So I'm the Assistant Director of Communications and Learning Solutions at the Chester County Intermediate Unit. Mary, I'll allow you to kind of introduce yourself as well.
Good evening. I'm Mary Curley. I'm the Director of Communications and Learning Solutions at the CCIU, and my role primarily tonight is to take notes. So it's really the Melissa and Ashley show.
And with that, Ashley, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Boyd. I'm a Senior Communications Specialist at the CCIU.
Awesome. So introductions on Zoom are always kind of awkward and weird. So one way that we'd like to just get a feel for who all is in the room is if you wouldn't mind in the chat, if you just wouldn't mind noting your name and what role you play at Avon Grove Charter School, whether you serve on the board, serve on leadership, your staff, or potentially a parent or community member. We'd love just to kind of have a feel for who all is in the room. So as we begin to talk, if you would not mind, just kind of adding again your name and the role you currently play, at Avon Grove Charter School in the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to begin to share my screen. All right, and so as we start out tonight, what I wanted to do is provide just a quick overview of what this audit aims to do and a little bit about what it will look like. And then I'll pass it off to Ashley to really help facilitate the real meat of our time together this evening. So as Ryan just mentioned, we've been asked as the Chester County Intermediate Unit to assist in a communication of the Avon Grove Charter School. And when we're looking to conduct audits, there's a couple of things obviously that are core goals of any audit. Obviously, a key piece is assessing current communication efforts, right? How are they working to help drive the school forward, help to associate with the goals that you're setting for the program, for the school. And so a big piece of that is looking at, some of the functional aspects of how well is communication going out? How consistent is it? Where is some of the gaps in terms of some of the information that may not be being portrayed? The other piece of that is also the strategic lens. So part of that is looking at your brand and the current perceptions about the school. So we'll be able to capture, where you are in the minds of your staff, of your parents. And typically we look at general community when we're doing these audits for districts. It's a little different. I think for the charter school, we're going to actually look to try and communicate not only with alumni, but also prospective families as well. For those that have learned about you, we want to learn a little bit more about how they've learned about you, where they're finding their information, because that will help lead as well into how you're best communicating with the community at large. By doing all of that, we're also identifying those gaps in your communication strategy. So again, we want to align with the strategic work that you're going through to make sure the communication can help and support all along the way. And again, looking then to provide baseline research. So being able to collect the data, provides that kind of establish that baseline, that benchmark, and then where do we go from here? How do we continue to grow and improve the communications overall? So how we're going to do that, we'll be looking to conduct focus groups. They'll be virtual. We found actually COVID, again, helps in some ways, but that we did find that moving focus groups into more of this virtual environment actually is more beneficial. One, because we get more participation. It's so much easier to participate from home or from wherever. And two, it also allows more opportunity to capture people's voices, whether they like to feel comfortable in unmuting and sharing out loud, or whether they feel that it's more appropriate for them to share their comments in the chat. We're able to really get a lot of that insights from those focus groups. We'll also be looking to conduct surveys. And so both the focus groups and surveys we'll definitely be looking to do with your parents as well as all staff. And as I mentioned, some of those community representatives in terms of the alumni and prospective families will be looking to do that as well. Additionally, we'll be looking at a publication analysis. So we'll be looking at the current communications that are being utilized. We'll take a look to see in terms of consistency in branding and message, how is the flow, what is being communicated, how frequently, because that will align as well with some of those preferences that some of your stakeholders may share as well. We'll take a look at the website, social media, and again, review of any existing goals, strategic plans. I know you guys are kind of working towards that. So kind of see how that is going and again, where communications can play a part. So in terms of timeline, we're starting, we just met with leadership last week to do the same exact exercise that we'll be walking through tonight. So we're really looking to initiate and identify what are the ideals? What are the communication ideals? Where should our communications be taking you? We'll work through those interviews and then we'll start more of that stakeholder engagement. That will move us into phase 2, where we're really conducting those focus group surveys. We're collecting that information. We're analyzing the website, social media, and so forth, which then will take us into phase 3. We'll really be able to analyze everything and be able to report back to you our findings as well as recommendations. So that phase 1 is really going to take place January, phase 2, probably mostly February, and the phase 3 will likely take place in March. So it's about a 3-month process to really be able to get the meat. And again, through this process, and I think it aligns well with what you're looking to continue to do as a strategic planning group, is we'll be able to share that information, and that's information that you can utilize as you're working through your goals and setting and so forth. So in terms of that final report, what you'll see, you'll get some of those current perceptions, expectations, needs, patterns. We're going to be collecting information again, both quantitative and qualitative. So the quantitative really helps to establish kind of where is the baseline as a whole. The qualitative will help us give us more context and more insight into those responses and results. We'll look at the effectiveness of school branding and marketing messages. We'll share benchmarks. So the CCIU have run more than a handful of communication audits for schools and districts in the area. So we can provide some of that comparative. But really, I think a big piece of this too is taking a look at some of the national benchmarks as well. But what really makes our audit differentiated and what we're going to be spending time on today is really being able to set up the benchmarks of where you currently are versus where you want to be. And with that, we'll be providing recommendations for how to close that gap. So just to kind of more visually represent that, we take a look at 4 key areas, knowledge, what people know about you, the attitudes, what they feel, behavior, how they interact, and the overall outcomes that you're looking to achieve. So through our exercise tonight, we'll be working to identify those ideals. What is it that you really want Avon Grove Charter School to be to all of your stakeholders in the ideal in these 4 areas? And then through the audit, we'll be able to measure where we feel you currently are as it relates to where you want to be. So again, those gaps we'll be able to fully identify and be able to provide recommendations back to all of you and to the community as well to be able to see where can we take Avon Grove Charter School moving forward. So I know I just ran through a lot of information as it relates to kind of what the audit is about and some of the steps we're looking to take with that audit. So I just want to pause real quickly before we get into more of the facilitated discussion, just to see if anyone has any questions. And you're welcome to unmute or chat. All right. Always good for that little awkward silence. Always make sure. All right. So then I'm going to pass it over to Ashley, who's really going to help us work through the meat again of what we're trying to achieve tonight, which is really trying to identify that ideal.
Thank you, Melissa. So as Melissa said, we're going to be analyzing the ideals of where you want and where you see Avon Grove Charter School to be in terms of communication. And while we're working through the exercise, you'll see each of them kind of build off of one another. So we'll start with the knowledge, then move into the attitudes, then behavior and outcomes. And for each section, I think the default is kind of to think about our parents or our staff. But I also want you to think about those prospective students, your alumni, your current students. Make sure that we are touching upon all the different stakeholders and what you want each of those different groups to know or to think and feel, do, and what you want the ultimate ideal outcomes to be. So I think we will stop sharing so we can have more of a discussion. And again, if you want to put some comments in the chat, we will make sure to jot them down. But we will go ahead and start with knowledge. So what do you want your audiences to know about Avon Grove Charter School? So think about all of your different audiences and what you would like each group to know. Melissa also put the question in the chat.
And Ashley, you said if we participated in the small group last week to kind of fade into the back, right? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So I should mention that since we already did the leadership interview last week, if you could kind of take a back seat this time. If you think of something that you didn't get to share the first time, please feel free to share, but we want to make sure that all of the different voices are heard. Thank you for reminding me of that. And go ahead and unmute before I start calling on people. Again, the question is, what do you want your audiences to know about Avon Grove Charter School? What sets them apart from the public schools in or private schools or other charter schools? What do you want them to know about Avon Grove Charter specifically?
This is going to be hard for me. No talking and nobody's talking. Somebody talk. Somebody.
No, we had such a good discussion earlier in the week, so I'm anticipating a good one tonight too. So
does a great job in educating children. You can say that.
I'm sorry, you said that I heard educating children. I think
my son just walked by and he said, tell them that they have really nice people and they do a great job educating children. So there you go.
There we go. Thank you for participating.
You're a jerk to me.
I'll pop in and say, I think the amount of individualization that we're able to do, I know people say just, size alone, but we really are able to, help individual students when things come up, not just academically, but also mentally, emotionally, socially. We're able to hit all aspects.
Yeah, so really like the individualization for the whole child, like when you talk about educating the whole child, the whole gamut. Thank you.
I would say when you think about communication, and this is just from a parent perspective, right? If I don't know anything about education, I would want to know a little bit about the demographic of the school, the grades that are offered, the extracurricular activities that are offered, some of the courses, what's different about charter as opposed to local public schools. I think there's a lot of people out there, right, that, and this is going to make Bishop cringe, but that probably still don't really know what a charter school really is, right? Like,
I agree.
They've heard charter before, but like, what does that even mean? So even back to like some basics, especially if you're looking at like the recruitment end for students and families.
Yeah, that's great. And that is something that came up in our discussion with leadership as well. I know that, just what is a charter school and educating the community as a whole. So good point.
I did say my tombstone will say, here lies Kristen Bishop, charter schools are public schools.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yes. And in the chat, I say also that we're still a public school and still have to follow the guidelines of the state. And Bonnie said that we care about our students and they are the forefront of all of our decisions. Any other things? What about, what do you want your students to know about your school?
So I would jump in here just to add to the previous discussion. I might have a somewhat unique perspective on this. I used to be an admission director for a local private high school, and some of the most impressive students that I used to admit were students from Avon Grove Charter. And when we moved into the area, my wife and I were really proud to have our now first grader attend Avon Grove Charter. So I would say not just the academic preparation and the well-roundedness of AGCS students stands out to me, but also their character. And I've seen that in my first grade daughter. I saw it in the students that I interviewed for high school. And for me, that's one of the biggest value pieces, because I think it stands to show how much the teachers care and how much the students just genuinely enjoy being at school.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a unique perspective, like you said, but such a good point and something that really does set them apart from other schools. So thank you for sharing. Does anybody want to jump in with staff or students? The fact that we have students in grades 4 to 12 in one location, which allows students to be truly known by the adults in the building. Kind of that community feel. Any other thoughts?
I don't want to take up all the oxygen.
No, please.
But you know, as we all know, Mrs. Reynolds' last day was today, and my daughter loved Mrs. Reynolds, and I think the two of them had a really special bond. And when Mrs. Reynolds put my daughter in the car for pickup yesterday, she said how special it was that she got to put my daughter in the car because the two of them had such a bond. And today, when I took my daughter to ballet this evening, she said how sad she was that Mrs. Reynolds was leaving, but how happy she was that she was going to be doing something new and exciting, and that she hopes that Mrs. Reynolds is going to come back. So again, I think just a really specific example of how much the teachers really care and the way that they're able to relate to and develop relationships with the students.
Yeah, that's great. So I don't want to speak for your school, but I think across the country and education specifically, we've had a tough time kind of retaining staff and getting new staff. So what about getting those prospective staff members? What would you want someone who's interested in joining the education field or maybe looking to switch from a different school? What would you want them to know about Avon Grove Charter?
I think it's important for different staff looking to come to Avon Grove Charter School, just about the communication internally and the opportunities for teachers and staff to be heard. I think that's really important. I know, my whole family is in education, my sisters, friends, and when I talk about different things that we do together with staff, they are shocked because it's so much more than, is typically done.
Mm-hmm. And somebody in the chat put that the staff gets to watch the students grow up. So that's definitely unique compared to another school that is kind of divided by grade level. What else would you want someone, what would you tell someone who's looking for a new role? Why come to Avon Grove Charter School?
I guess I would say that it is a small school that cares about their students and the staff. And like Maggie said, we've had people come in for PDs and be shocked that they provided lunch and food trucks, and we do get a lot of little extras to know that we're appreciated and loved, and it really gives you that small school community feel that I think as a staff member we all appreciate and get that loved feeling, and then we kind of pass that same feeling on to our students, which makes them feel hopefully loved. And it's not just from teaching them either. It goes from buses to car line to we get to see them all day long in all their different areas. And it goes to the hallways, to everything. So I feel like it just encompasses everything.
That's great. Thank you, Tracy. A similar comment in the chat are the charter is an opportunity for public education that has a community feel and also goes above and beyond just education, but character development, gives children hands-on opportunities like dance, microfarm, and STEM. Children flourish here and they make lifelong connections. So that's a good one for alumni also, and maybe prospective parents and prospective staff.
And I will add, this is Sharon Ray. I will add too that the level of support and just true commitment at every level is, I've been at other places, and so charter is unlike any place that I have been. And if somebody doesn't know the answer, they will jump right in there with you and help you to get the answer. You can turn to anybody at any time and they will walk alongside of you, whether it's in your division, not in your division. And, especially at State Road, I see that where high school teachers, 4 to 6 teachers, middle school, whatever it may be. And it's very unique at charter to have that level of commitment to the school itself, to each other and the staff, and to the students and families. And that's something that I think that makes Avon Grove Charter stand away from other schools.
Those are really great examples. Thank you. I also see in the chat that the students go on to be highly successful in their chosen paths, whether it's college, trade school, armed forces, or the workforce. That goes back to the individualized education and educating that whole child, making sure all of their needs are met. Any other thoughts before we move on? It's really important and helpful that students have the opportunity to meet and make friends with kids from outside their home district. There are kids coming from Coatesville and Thorndale, the geographic diversity. Yeah, those are all great points too. Okay, well, we can certainly review at the end, or if you think of anything, feel free to put it in the chat and Melissa will make sure it gets in the right place. But we will go ahead and move on to attitudes. So we were just talking about knowledge, what you want your audiences to know about Avon Grove Charter School. So ideally, if they know everything that we just talked about, what do you then want them to think and feel about your school? So what attitudes would you like them to have?
I think we'd want them to know that, when their kids are going to be well cared for when they're with us.
Okay. Feel that they're safe and in a good spot. Loved and appreciated, I see in the chat as well. Thinking again about all of the different things that set Avon Grove Charter apart that we were just talking about. What ideally do you think that they would think or feel like, that they made the right choice for their student, or, is this the right choice for my family? Going into those different attitudes. Flexibility and willing to think outside the box to meet student needs, feel inspired by staff and students, feel they are prepared. Students feel safe taking risks and aren't afraid to try new things or make mistakes. Those are coming from the chat. So those are really, I think, kind of family-centered, student-centered. What about your staff? I know some of it does cross over into staff as well, but how do you want your staff to feel about being an employee at Avon Grove Charter School?
I would back up what Drew said, but take out students and put staff too. That I feel many do. Some might not all the time, but that they feel safe to take those risks.
Okay.
Is that, and then also that staff, are heard and supported for their own professional growth.
Yeah, I'll add on to that too, Matt, that when, because not everyone is going to be happy with every decision or understand the decision, but we try to make it an environment where if staff don't understand something or disagree, that there are those avenues that they're able to voice their questions or concerns, whether it's the roundtables or the other, venues that we have.
Okay, thank you. I know some of them do kind of cross over into the previous one too, so there will be some overlap in both. Let's see. There's a definite, students don't fall through the cracks, and students know that. There's a definite family feel to Avon Grove Charter School. Teachers and staff genuinely care about the students. As a teacher, I want all of my students to feel loved and safe at school. I also hope that parents feel I am meeting their child's needs academically, socially, and emotionally. And as a teacher, I feel we were given the freedom and support to try new things with our students inside and outside the classroom. Those are all great comments. Thank you. Do you have any other thoughts? I'm sure some of the original ones kind of fit into here as well, as I said. Okay, well, we can move into the next section. And again, if you think of anything or remember anything that you wanted to share, please feel free to put it in the chat. There's one more. If your student comes from a district and they need extra support to get gaps filled, we'll walk hand in hand with your students to get the gaps filled and lead them to success. Teachers here support each other. There's an unwavering support among teacher teams. It's all good things. Thank you.
I think that would be a really good one. I think what Charity just said for potential parents and students to really, what would differentiate us, with other school choices that, districts that parents have, is that a lot of times coming from a home district, you may be lagging in different things. And that's why, people choose charter, right? So that differentiator of really walking that journey with the student and the parent, I think really is important for parents, prospective parents to understand, and prospective students too, especially older students where they may be really concerned about college or, any post education concerns that they have, that we really, that you guys as a staff, not me, I'm just a parent, but that you really take that into consideration and to elevate and encourage the children.
And I think you brought up a good point that we talked about in the leadership meeting too, that it is a school of choice. So everyone's there because they want to be there, which kind of creates that community feel.
And the pride with attitude, right? Pride for parents that their children, attend charter, pride for the students, like my son has for attending charter and all the relationships that he's made. And then also pride for all of your staff and administration that they're a part of, something really great. So I think pride sometimes maybe looked at as a negative thing, but like with ego, but I think pride for our school and our PAC values and stuff should be somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, well, we can go ahead and move on to the next area, which is behavior. So again, thinking of your ideals of knowledge, what you want your audiences to know, your ideal attitudes, what you want your audience to think and feel. Now let's move into behavior. So what do you want your audiences to do once they know what you want them to know and think and feel what you want them to think and feel? With all that knowledge.
Be engaged.
Yeah.
So I think from all levels, but I think we do a really good job of communicating. There's a lot of different things for parents to, to self-serve and to really understand what's going on, to read announcements and all of those things. Sometimes frustration from a parent is that I get frustrated with other parents for not using all the tools that the school really puts out there. I know they put a lot of time and effort into, giving these tools for us to self-serve and to really have information at our fingertips. So just really for other parents, I guess, to be engaged in the process.
Yeah. And in the chat, take the steps, support charter and come be a part of the awesome community. Help us get that new building by financially supporting the future of Avon Grove Charter. That goes kind of back into the pride that we were just recently talking about as well. Because we are so spread out, it can be challenging to get parents to attend events that the school offers. How do we motivate them to engage? So those are good things to look at. So again, like think ideally, how would you want them to engage? Or ideally, you would want them coming to your events and participating and supporting those events. How about for your alumni? How do you want your alumni to feel about being an Avon Grove Charter School graduate?
I think it would be good for some of our graduates to know that some students that graduated prior to them are now choosing to send their children to charter. So it's kind of like a generational thing that can happen.
Yeah. Desire to give back, they're welcome back. Okay. So when people ask someone about Avon Grove Charter School, how would you want them to respond to that? Any thoughts? Thinking back to, the knowledge that we want them to know. You want them to know what a charter is and what it can do for their students. So ideally, how would you like them to respond when asked about Avon Grove Charter?
Well, I think it's important to know that we are constantly changing, listening to what parents want and what students want, not just staying stagnant, but like look what we're doing with the high school, or seeing the need and creating the collaboratory, just doing those things that will keep us relevant, keep students and families wanting to be part of Avon Grove Charter School, and then for the alumni, for them to look back and be proud of the school they went to.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I know with some charter schools or private schools, there's turnover at certain points, like whether it be middle school or high school. Would that be something that you want like your families to do, is just to stay there throughout their educational career? Know that they have those options, K through 12. Yes, no.
I didn't realize how hard it is for me. This is killing me not to talk.
Got a yes in the chat. Thank you, Matthew. Second yes from Drew. All right. Yep, stay throughout their whole educational career, K through 12. Great. There's not many places that they can go and stay in one spot, or do you have two buildings to stay and see everybody grow up, like you were saying before?
Hopefully 3 soon.
Okay.
So I guess, like, to me, that was when looking for a school for my son, that was a big differentiator because I didn't have to put my son into a K, bring him to charter for K-6, then have to find somewhere else for him to attend. So I think just going back to those differentiators, that's a huge one, that he's able to attend from kindergarten through 12th grade and grow and make relationships with teachers and staff, and that was a huge plus for us.
Thank you. That's great, Kelly. Any final thoughts? One of the biggest value propositions was the fact that kids could go all the way through and have that consistency of place and relationships with other families, teachers. And that Avon Grove Charter School has that as well. Yes, those connections, like you were saying, that school is the community.
Yeah, I can already tell you, I work with the high school, but Kelly's got a great kid. I get to see him every day at the end of the day and get to put him on the car line. You don't get to experience that in other schools.
You're right. As a parent, yes, that's.
And Kelly, I teach 5th grade and I never had Dexter, but I say hi to him every day. It's Miss Ianni here. You can tell him I say hi.
I will. Thanks. Oh.
Tell her I said hi back.
Okay.
Hey, Dex.
Hello. I'm listening to your conversation.
Okay.
It's unique that students had the opportunity to attend K-12. It's been fun to go to high school graduations for former kindergartners. That's probably very surreal.
And I think one thing that I get asked a lot by parents who don't have kids in charter is, well, how do they keep, the little kids from the bigger kids and all that kind of thing. And I think that, that's another thing maybe in the knowledge portion is, I think you guys do a great job about it. And it's not, it's a positive. I don't think it's a negative at all. Some people look at it like, oh, they're going to State Road, and how are they going to be integrated? And are they going to be, I think it was a great transition. And I think maybe that will come up for a lot of parents, but in an onboarding, portion of new parents and teacher or parents and students, or something, maybe we could hit on that, because I get asked that, but I think it's not a problem at all. I think everyone does a great job with it.
And that kind of speaks to something like you are then advocating for the school, which is something probably I would think ideally you would want parents or teachers or students, all of your stakeholders to do, is to advocate and educate, because there is that gap in knowledge sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So much innovation goes into the curriculums and classrooms to make the education available and understandable, regardless of how your student learns best, whether it's hands-on with technology groups and even one-on-one, your student has a voice and is heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, well, we can move into the last section. So we talked about knowledge, we talked about attitudes and behavior. So the last one is outcomes. So if all of these ideals align, all the stars align, and you get all the way to the end of your bar that Melissa showed you, what outcomes do you hope to see from successful audience interaction? Applications for enrollment and employment, someone asking me how to apply,
filling that third school, third building.
Yes, Kelly. Winning the lottery to have enough money for it.
Mm-hmm. I think the outcome is, forget whose point it was originally. Was it Danny's point about, and that probably made Kristen cringe about the, what charter is. So I think the outcome is that everyone knows what charter is, right? And that students can speak to it, parents can speak to it, staff certainly will be able to speak to it. Obviously, they're the best advocates for it, but the outcome would be knowing what it is, believing in it, being proud of attending there, being proud of your children going there and, coming out, being successful and prepared for their next level. And I just think engaged. I don't know.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about their mission and kind of like believing in it and living it and making sure all those decisions go through it. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Kelly.
And we do like pack values for kids. Maybe we do something fun with like pack values for parents and guardians, or I'm not sure, something maybe to like spur more engagement or something. If that's an issue, I don't know. From a teacher and staff perspective, if they feel that engagement is,
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea, Kelly.
If any other ideas on what outcomes you would hope to see when all of your ideals align? Or any other thoughts on any of them? Knowledge, attitudes, behavior, or outcomes. If you think of anything or somebody said something that sparked, oh, what about this? Feel free to chime in. Full picture of advocating for charter in government, that we have a waiting list that shows the need for greater expansion. We're fully staffed and are able to have the cream of the crop because we're a place of excellent employment that even meets the needs of the staff, whether it's personal or professional, family environment that has one another in mind. Thank you, Charity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so talking about advocating again, like that can be actions, but also outcomes, and maintaining that waiting list. I know that was a big one in our last meeting as well. You have any final thoughts before we wrap up? Okay, well, we'll share our contact information at the end too. If you think of anything or, didn't want to say it within here, feel free to share with us. I'll turn it back over to Melissa for next steps. Thank you.
So I did just put our email addresses in the chat. So definitely if there's anything else that you think of and would like to share, please certainly share them with us. In terms of next steps, just again, so you kind of going back to the timeline in our process here. So again, this conversation and the exact same exercise that we ran through last week with the leadership team as well. We're going to be collecting and pulling all that information together to draft an ideals document, which will ultimately serve as one of those benchmarks for our audit, establishing where we want to be, what we want our stakeholders to know, to feel, to do, and ultimately what we want to accomplish. So we'll be sharing that ideals document back out and really get kickstarted from there. Just so you all are aware as well. So when it comes to the focus groups, as mentioned, we'll look to have focus groups for staff, for parents, look to try and have some for alumni, some prospective families as well. What those focus groups will do, will basically start to ask some of those questions around what is it that you know, right? what kind of communications are you receiving? What are the current attitudes? What is that first word or phrase that comes to mind when you think Avon Grove Charter School? So those are the types of questions that are going to start to feed into where we think our audiences currently are. So with focus groups, we typically ask that leadership and board not attend focus groups, only because we want to make sure that our stakeholders feel free and open to share their questions, their concerns. But I just wanted to let you know that it will be a little different than what we did tonight. And all of the input that gets shared during those focus groups does remain anonymous. All the information is reported back in an aggregate form. So it is a little different style. So those parents and staff that are on this call tonight, I just wanted to make you aware of that and to invite you to certainly participate in those as well, to share some of the thoughts. Obviously, similar to what you shared tonight, but also, taking a look at what are some of the barriers potentially that may be keeping folks from knowing or thinking some of these things as well. So in terms of next steps, we will be getting that ideals document back out, so we'll be able to share that. And secondly, keep an eye open. We'll look to begin scheduling the focus groups, followed by the survey as well. And obviously everyone is welcome to complete the surveys. And we'll look to start analyzing the data from there. So I do want to thank you all. I know it gets hard during weeknights with everyone's kind of running around between work and family duties and so forth. So I really do appreciate the time that you took tonight to spend with us. And again, Ashley and I will hang for a little bit. If there's any additional questions that you might have regarding the audit or any final thoughts that just came to your mind, we're more than happy to take those and to talk through those. But otherwise, Brian, I don't know if there's anything further from your end.
No, so that was the last agenda item for this evening. So it would just be Blaze calling the meeting, asking for an adjournment.
I have one quick question. Sorry.
Sure. No, go ahead.
And I don't know if this is for leadership or if it's for Melissa and Ashley. At the end of this exercise, this audit, the deliverable, does the deliverable look like to the parents?
So I can take.
Go ahead.
From the CCIU's perspective, we'll be sharing a full report that again, that'll look at kind of the functional aspect as well as the strategic aspect with leadership and some of the recommendations that we would have. In some cases that was presented both in document, but we also do just a general presentation. So it's in terms of leadership's choice in terms of whether they want to share that in full or share that in terms of what their selected actions are based on the audit. And, that's for them to kind of work through based on the information that will be provided. We will not, our recommendation is not to share out, obviously, the raw survey or focus group themes, but really, if anything, in summary or aggregate form, to be able to share back out with folks in terms of what the key learnings were and what the next steps might be.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? I think you're good, Blaze.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for the time. We'll adjourn the meeting at 8:00.